Today I'm going to show you a new tool that I've recently developed that helps remove some of the tedious tasks and also helps avoid human error in generating LaTeX tables for inclusion in a research grant proposal. In the era of dual anonymous proposal reviews, in which the identity of both the reviewers and the proposers are not disclosed, the effort involved in generating project timelines and tables that show roles and responsibilities of the proposing team members is substantially increased because two different versions of tables are typically required. An anonymous version of the tables where references to team members must not involve names, and then another version where the names are explicitly included. I discovered the hard way that seemingly minor changes to a co-investigator's role, or maybe an addition of a new task in the project timeline, can create a lot of heartburn because those changes must be propagated in a very consistent way throughout all the tables that are impacted by such a change. And if you forget to make a change somewhere, that could actually make the difference between getting awarded funding or not. I've decided to end the stress of trying to ensure consistency and not making any more human errors by automating this process. The result is a proposal tool that allows you to break down a project into its component task categories. And then under each category, you can define as many subtasks as you would like. And then you assign members of your team to those subtasks along with estimates of timelines for starting and completing the subtask, how many work hours or work weeks for each team member is involved. The program consolidates that information into 5 different tables that will satisfy the dual anonymous requirements for many federal grant funding agencies. The program is a script that is attached to a Google spreadsheet. There are 2 relevant tabs or sheets. The 2 tabs can be seen at the bottom, and you can flip to one tab or the other simply by clicking on the tab. In both of these tabs, you will notice that there are yellow and white columns. The white columns are those that should never be manually edited because their values are computed automatically by equations that are embedded in the cells. The yellow tabs, or different shades of yellow, are meant for manual editing. The personnel and FTE sheet is the one that you probably should start with first. Most of the columns are self-explanatory. The first thing you'll do is enter the names of all the members of your proposing team. Some of these fields can be selected by using the drop-down menu, while others need to be typed in. You should never add a new row by any other method except by pressing this purple button, Add New Team Member Row. The reason you shouldn't add a row in any other manner is because you will likely not capture all of the equations that I just mentioned earlier that are embedded in those cells. And there's also some named ranges that possibly won't get defined in any new row that you would create if you create it outside of using this button. So just use this button whenever you need to create a new member. The ID column is a unique identifier for the team member. If the initials are unique, then use those for the ID. You just want to pick something that's easy to remember because on the next sheet that you'll be filling out, you'll need to refer to each of the team members by using their IDs. The summary column at this time should not be filled out. What you're seeing is a pre-existing table, but when you're first starting out with a clean sheet, you want to save this for last, and I'll explain why in a minute. And of course, these rightmost columns, because they are various shades of white or gray, should be left alone and not manually edited ever, because those are values that are calculated. Let's enter a new team member just to show how this works. So what we always want to do is click on Add a New Team Member row. And let me just show you, before I do that, what the current table looks like at the bottom. So when you press this button, a new row will appear at the very bottom of the table, but above the red stripe. Okay, so now you see that the new row has appeared in the table, and now all we have to do is fill it out. Don't forget to fill out the role. Every single person's name should have a role affiliation as well. Also note that if you have more than one collaborator or more than one COI, you should always pick a number next to it that is unique. You don't want to have, for example, 2 collaborators, parenthesis 2. As I said a moment ago, we will come back to filling the summary cell out later. Now that we have our proposing team members identified, let's flip over to the tasks sheet. It's now time to think about how to break our project down into pieces that can be assigned to members of the team. When you first open the script, before it's been written into, you will only see one single row in this table. And that will be where you insert your very first task category. I've already pre-filled out this table just to show you what it would look like in a matured state. But we will add some more tasks here so you can see how that process is done. So you always want to enter the title of your task category in this column here. And then you can add subtasks under that category by using this light blue Add New Sub-Level Task. And as you can see, I've added several subtasks to each of these categories. Let's show how that process works. To add a top-level task category, I use the navy blue button, and when I press this button, you will see that a new row opens up at the very bottom, just above the red stripe. And what will happen is there will be a placeholder inserted that indicates where you should start typing. So you want to erase the placeholder text and then put in your own text. To insert subtasks under a task category, you want to click on or underneath the category that you want to expand, and then click the light blue button. And underneath the category, a brand new row will appear. And just like before, it will have a placeholder text that indicates where you want to start typing. To create even more subtasks, we could either click here or here, because both of those rows are affiliated with this particular task. So I'm going to add a couple more subtasks. Okay, and to show you that you can also always go back and add additional tasks to other categories, I'm going to add a subtask to one of these categories above here. Let's add to this category here. Now that we have entered all of our tasks and the categories, the next step is to define the task type timelines, which is this block of columns. Each cell in these columns it represents 3 months of time. You'll note that there are 4 columns per year, or quarters. And the way one represents a timeline is you simply bracket the timeline with dashes. A dash at the beginning and a dash at the end, and then the software will do that blue coloration to indicate the span of time. Now, some tasks might not require more than 3 months, so it's perfectly okay to just type a single dash into a cell. Once you have all your timelines defined, it is now time then to make assignments of those tasks to your proposing team members. This first column is for designation of the task lead, the person who's going to be responsible for making sure all the pieces come together for that one task. And then all of the other columns here are basically the people on your proposing team who have expertise and can help with that one task. So let's make the new person we just added the team lead for this task. And the next column here will be how many solid work weeks we think might be involved. Note that this number can be substantially smaller than the overall timeline that we gave for the start and completion dates of that task. The next column is of the number that you put in this previous column, how many of those weeks are in-kind contributions that do not have to be covered by the funding that's being requested in the proposal. Typically, you're going to just leave this column blank, but if you have collaborators, then you might consider their time to be in-kind contributions, since by definition, collaborators don't get funded on proposals. Let's say that this person has some other grant that can cover 2 weeks worth of her time. So we'll put a 2 in here just to demonstrate how that works. And the expertise on the team that might help this individual on this task get put here. And the other columns are exactly the same as what we've already described for the task lead columns. And you don't have to actually put anyone down for expertise if the task lead is really the only person needed for a particular task. Once you are finished filling out the tasks, then what you want to do is flip back to the other tab. But before I do that, I want to point out one thing. Unlike the case with adding a row, where you absolutely must use these interfaces to add a row, to delete a row, you can just delete it using the Google Sheet method. So I want to actually just get rid of this new task that I had added. So what you just do is click on it to select the row, right-click your mouse, and then just say delete row, and it's gone. So we're going to go back to the personnel and FTE sheet, and I want to point out that some things have now been populated. First of all, you will note that some numbers have appeared now. These weren't here before. And what these numbers are the work weeks that you entered here converted into fractional work years, or FTEs, rolled up for all the tasks that that person is involved in. Because this is the number at the end of the day that you're going to need for budgeting purposes in your proposal. Hidden but easily uncovered. If you just click on these little plus signs, you'll see another column. Let me just open them all up. So this first column, which has a big summation sign, is all of the FTEs for that person. The next column, we've sort of already described it, would be of these FTEs, how many are in-kind contributions. And then the next column is of these FTEs, how many are being requested for funding in this proposal. The icons mean the same for the totals as well. But I consider this sort of visual clutter, so you can quickly hide everything except the column relevant to this proposal just by clicking on those buttons above. The other thing that has been filled out in addition to the FTE columns, I hid it again just to keep down the visual clutter, but you can see these two white columns here. And what these two columns are rolled up summaries, again, based on what you entered over here in the tasks for each of the members of the team, basically describing all the things that they are involved in as a task lead, and then all the things that they're involved in as an expert. This individual was only involved in one task, which is listed here as a task lead, and not put down as an expert on anything else. To change that, we could add this individual elsewhere. So let's put this person down here. One of the things that I forgot to mention is if you type in an ID that is not listed in the personnel and FTE columns, then the script will refuse to let you type in some other ID. And you can also type in fractional number of weeks. And now when we go back to the personnel and FTE sheet, you'll now note that there is now reference to some involvement in the expert tasks summary. These two columns are not used for anything other than to inform you with regards to how to write the summary. So this column is a little bio summary that will be rolled up and put into a LaTeX table for inclusion in the proposal that just gives in words an overall summary of who each of the team members are, what overall things are they responsible for, and what is their expertise that leads them to be involved in those tasks. When writing the summary, you want to start off with kind of in mid-sentence, with the assumption that the script will put the person's name along with their role as the first words of the sentence. Rather than you watching me take up a bunch of time agonizing over what to write here as an example, I'm going to go away for a minute, and then magically you will see this text appear. Now that we filled out all of our personnel information and we have entered all of the tasks related to the proposal and populated the roles and responsibilities, the last thing we now need to do is generate all the LaTeX tables that will summarize all this information. And the way to generate the tables is simply to hit Generate LaTeX Table button. You know that something is happening when you see this running script. Okay, the tables appear to have finished. So what happens next is that we should see 5 new plain text files appearing on Google Drive, down in the same folder that the spreadsheet resides. Once you have verified that the script has stopped running and has completed the generation of these 5 text files, then you can connect those to your Overleaf project. In this example Overleaf project that I've created for demonstration purposes, you'll notice several input commands to names of files down in this tables_bios folder. Each of those files actually resides on Google Drive, and it's linked to this project using a URL link. Previous to making this video, I downloaded several of the files, but I actually need one more. So I'm going to show you how you link one of these plain text files that was just generated by our proposal work plan tool to your Overleaf project. And then select from external URL, and then in the top text box you want to type in this URL link, followed by the Google ID number. You get that ID number by going back to your Google Drive folder and then finding the file that you're interested in linking, which for me it's this one. Right-click on the file, get link, and then copy out the really long alphanumeric code that's sort of towards the end of that presented URL. Paste at the very end, and then make a name for that file as it will appear in your Overleaf folder, and presumably how you refer to that file in your LaTeX. Now, it's best if you put a .tex at the very end, because doing so allows you to easily preview the file. If you put a .txt, then when you try to preview it, it'll say it can't, and you'll have to download the files to be able to actually look at it as it appears on Overleaf. Once you're finished, you just hit Create. And you can see that this file now got created in our menu. And if you click on that file, you'll be able to easily preview it to make sure that there's nothing obviously wrong with it. To show how these tables from the proposal work plan tool get generated in LaTeX, after you reference them by using the input LaTeX code, let me just recompile here just to render a nice fresh copy. Oops, it looks like we have an error, and the error is caused because we didn't label things correctly. Instead of not anonymous, it should have said, sorry, instead of non-anonymous, it should have said not anonymous. No problem. We can correct that just by going in and renaming. Let's go back and try recompiling now. Right, seems to have worked better this time. So I went to link what you see with what we wrote in the spreadsheet. This first section here is bio summaries. And that information is extracted from this column here. You'll note that the script inserted and bold-faced the name along with the role that that person has on the proposal. This table is an example of what the roles and responsibilities and assignments looks like, with a list of all the tasks that are involved, and then who the lead is and then the other people who are going to help that person with that task. This information is extracted from the tasks sheet and basically the information that you filled out in these columns here. Obviously, this is the not anonymous version of that table. Keeping on scrolling down, this is an anonymous version of the table that provides assignment information, but instead of referencing the people by their names, they reference by the role that they have. It also provides something of a timeline, telling what year and quarter the task starts and what year and quarter the task finishes. This information is extracted from the task timelines that you provide here. Here is an example of an anonymous table that, again, references by the role and not by the name for what the FTEs of each of the members are, broken down as being what is funded by this proposal, any in-kind contributions, and the total funded plus in-kind contributions. This table is the not anonymous version of what we just saw, where the actual name appears instead of what the role is, but also the role designation is provided. And then again, how many FTEs that person will be working on this project as a function of year. So you've seen the 5 tables that are produced and how they're used in a proposal. While you're writing a proposal, you will undoubtedly need to change things. You might need to add a task or remove a name, add a name, whatever. Any kinds of changes that you make on the proposal work plan spreadsheets, remember to always generate the LaTeX tables after you've made a change. And these files will be overwritten with the latest material. And to ensure that that information, any changes that you make, propagate down to your Overleaf project, here's what you do. After you've run proposal work plan by hitting the Generate LaTeX table button, then what you would do is you would go to the file that you needed to have updated, and you simply hit refresh. You don't have to go to that whole process of linking the URL. Once that linkage is done, it's done for good. You just have to hit the refresh button, and that whatever is on the Google Drive is the version that you will see then presented here on your Overleaf. And you have to refresh each one of the files separately. So don't forget to refresh all of them if you think there are going to be changes in all of the files. If you forget how to make the linkage between your Overleaf project and the Google Drive files, you don't have to memorize anything. You just have to go to the Overleaf help documentation, and there's a very well-written how-to menu that we just followed that guides you through that process. The proposal work plan tool will be put on GitHub for download. Once the download package is finalized, I'll put the GitHub information and the how to install instructions in the description section below this video. Thanks for your attention.